Released on March 28, 2023, Hourglass of Fate, or as it is more commonly known, HG, was added to Sea of Thieves as the main feature of Season 8. Arguably one of, if not the most popular additions to SOT in at least terms of content longevity, Hourglass provides players with easy access to on-demand PvP. This takes form in sloop, brig, or galley ship combat that is supplemented by hand-to-hand engagements. If you clicked on this video, I'm guessing you already knew that. Rather than rehashing the story of Hourglass, this video aims to examine how the mode has transformed the Sea of Thieves meta. Believe me, young, beautiful viewer, Hourglass has changed the game a lot. Whether you're an HG goon, casual participant, or avoid Glass of Fate altogether, Hourglass affects you every single session, whether directly or indirectly. As a random man who started playing Sea of Thieves 2 years before Season 8's conception, I've seen with my own juicy and vibrant eyes how the introduction of Hourglass has radically and permanently changed the game. Before we can talk about Hourglass, we first need to travel back in time. All the way back to the year 2019. For in this year, Rare added a new and exciting PvP-focused mode to Sea of Thieves.
The Arena!
As part of the anniversary update, Arena was added to Sea of Thieves on April 30th, 2019. Just to briefly explain the addition, Arena was a PvP game mode where players competed against other crews to earn the most silver. Silver was earned through various methods, including selling chests, ship combat, defeating enemy crews. You get the idea. Matches lasted 15 minutes and the crew with the most silver at the end of the game was deemed the victor. For the first time in SOT history, players could practice naval and hand-to-hand combat in an isolated world populated solely with other players of the same ambition. I should also note the Insiders program was added a month earlier. Some of the more die-hard players began using Insiders as a method to TDM, and they continue to do so till this very day. Honestly, Insiders and its effect on meta could be its own separate video. You may ask, Cosmic, the year is 2025. Why are you talking about a game mode that hasn't seen the light of day since Abraham Lincoln's assassination? Are you just a washed up, nostalgic driven nerd? My answer is, why don't you say that to my face, you sad, filthy beta male? In reality, we should look at the rise and fall of Arena as a case study. We can examine how a PvP game mode affected the Sea of Thieves meta all the way back in the 19th century and compare it to how HG affects the same game in the same way 6 years later. Trust me, it will all make sense. Go look up old Reddit forums, related YouTube videos, and everything in between from April of 2019, and you will see it was clear how utterly hyped the SOT community was for Arena. As this is not a video on Arena, I won't delve into the exact reasons as to why the mode began to wane in popularity. The important thing to note for the sake of this video is that Arena gradually shifted from being a mode enjoyed by the broader Sea of Thieves community to one primarily sustained by dedicated PvP players. I'm not sure when this change exactly occurred, although I suspect it was gradual and began soon after Arena's release. So, what did this mean for the SOT meta? Think about it. How do you get better at PvP in any video game? You practice it. In adventure mode, or as we call it today, high seas, your PvP engagements are limited both in player pool and in exposure. You can play for days on end without ever fighting a competent crew. Meanwhile, Arena diehards were fighting other crews of a relatively higher skill level for hours on end every time they hopped on the mode. Because of Arena, we have two different pools of players, adventure players and arena goons. So, What happened when Arena Goons decided to load up onto Open Adventure? For some context, I began playing SOT in mid-2021 as a fetus. At this point in Arena's lifespan, only the die-hard PvP players would occupy the mode. So, when I tell you in 2021, everyone, and I mean everybody, was terrified of Arena players, it is not an exaggeration. Seeing a ship with Arena earned sales on the horizon was utterly terrifying. It's the same sort of anxiety you experience today when a gold skelly crew is hunting you down for your priceless Fort of the Dam loot. You know, the skill gap between Arena Goons and Open Adventure players was actually insane. It was like the two player pools were on two separate video games, one built for casual exploration, the other for cutthroat naval warfare. This brutal divide between Arena veterans and the average adventurer shaped the game's PvP culture in ways that are honestly still felt to this very day. I wouldn't be surprised if Arena indirectly created the Running Reaper stereotype. At the same time, and this will later also apply to Hourglass, while Arena created monsters, it also protected adventure players from them. In 2021, actually running into an Arena crew was moderately rare, as they typically stayed in the mode that gave them their skill in the first place. All this would change, however, on March 10th, 2022.
We've made the difficult decision to close Arena.
When Arena closed its doors in March of 2022, the effects of Rare's decision were felt instantly throughout Adventure mode. In my own experience playing during the succeeding weeks after Arena's death, it seemed almost in an act of protest, Arena veterans were flooding the high seas, slaughtering everyone in their path of destruction. While this frankly sucked for all of us scrubs, it also highlighted the issue Rare had created by introducing and later removing the game's only straight PvP mode. Arena created PvP monsters, but no longer housed them. Once you open Pandora's box, it can't be closed again. To keep Sea of Thieves, or any game for that matter, from dying, maintaining a healthy and steadily growing community is essential. Having a bunch of sweats running around, spawn camping new and intermediate players to the point of rage quit will kill the game. But on the flip side, driving away the PvP community, arguably the most loyal part of your player base, would be just as fatal. What SOT needed was something for former Arena vets and PvP enthusiasts to do as entertainment besides slaughtering Pirate Emporium connoisseurs. This is where Hourglass of Fate comes in. I am not going to waste your time explaining what HG is. Rather, I will waste your time explaining how it has affected the meta. Akin to Arena, when Hourglass was first introduced into SOT in March of 2023, it was enjoyed by both the PvP and PvE communities alike. Arguably, at an even faster rate than Arena, Hourglass morphed into a mode where only the sweaty side of the community festered, and casual players quickly gravitated back into the open world. To this day, HG continues to fill the hole Arena had left open when it departed from our world back in 2022. However, while they are part of the same archetype, Hourglass is not Arena. I know I'm going to get some backlash for saying this, but in my opinion, Hourglass, on average, produced players with a higher and more consistent level of PvP skill than what we saw from most Arena veterans back in 2022. Let me explain. Arena had multiple crews competing against other teams for the most silver. Naturally, PvP was a big part of the mode. On the contrary, Hourglass is only PvP. Refining your openings, cannon shots, ship defense, boarding skills is not a part of Hourglass, it is Hourglass. HG has been out for over 2 years, meaning there's a pool of players that have only grinded Hourglass for the last 2 years. How has it impacted the game? I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. The skill level of HG players is on average significantly higher than that of their high C counterparts. In fact, I would argue the skill level of PvP players as a whole is higher now in 2025 than at any other point in SOT's lifetime. Don't believe me? If you're an HG goon, I want you to spend the next week of your play sessions on high seas and compare the average PvP you experience there to what you see in Hourglass. At times, it's like two separate games. It can be argued, a high seas player with 120 days on the game is at a comparable skill level to an HG goon with half of that playtime. Of course, obviously, right, hours on the game is relative, and at a certain point, playtime does not matter as much when gauging a player's capabilities, but you get my point. Unlike Arena, HG takes place on the same servers as High Seas, meaning High Seas and Hourglass are inherently tethered together. While I think it's pretty cool that the two communities share the same space, it also creates issues. Nothing is stopping an HG goon after finishing their match from beelining straight for another crew grinding a Fort of Fortune, as opposed to back in Arena's day, where Arena crews would have to load up onto adventure mode to find open world action. Hourglass players are always on high seas servers. While HG is fun, it's not like there are other game types to retain player attention. If you are strictly a high seas player and get angry when a random skelly crew rolls up on you seemingly out of nowhere, this is why that happens and why it was so much less prominent during Arena. The beginning of Season 16 really showcased the skill gap issue. As you probably know, this season added a new Reaper's Quest, which awards players with a piece of loot called the Skull of the Banished. The issue with this is that the season also introduced a bunch of new Skeleton Curse cosmetics, many of which require players to steal the new skull from other crews. What occurred in the first few weeks of this update was nothing short of a slaughter. Rare was encouraging HG goons to step back into open seas and terrorize the PvE community. I honestly felt bad for those poor PvE loving souls. So, how do you keep Sea of Thieves enjoyable for everyone? While HG most certainly protects high seas players from their sweaty counterparts, the mode is still clearly limited in this regard. One thing I would argue should become a priority for Rare is adding more PvP focused updates and additions to HG. Really, this is essential for SOT to maintain a healthy environment. As metas evolve for any game, veteran players will outcompete their novice counterparts. To encourage new players to join and, more importantly, stay in the SOT ecosystem, the PvP community should be fed here and there with content that encourages competition between players of the same skill bracket. This can be done through updates to HG, reintroducing Arena, or just adding more fight nights, etc. So let me reiterate. Rare should discourage PvP open world sweat by enticing HG goons with better PvP focused content. More PvP content not directly tied to high seas play allows new and casual players to compete amongst themselves with fewer tryhards flooding the space. It would make both sides of the community happy and indirectly encourage beginners to stay within the community longer than a week. There's nothing wrong with being a sweat and sinking whoever you like, and there's nothing wrong with just playing PvE, and there's also nothing wrong with doing a little bit of both. While Hourglass of Fate keeps sweats entertained and away from high seas, it has also made the PvP community almost too good at the game. While this is not necessarily a bad thing, HG's flaws and limitations encourage tryhards to attack the most vulnerable part of the community. More player versus player content would discourage this and create a better SOT ecosystem. Give PvP players more stuff to do. Of course, this is just my oh-so-right opinion. This video is part 1 in a 3-part series. Next time we will dive into the rise and fall of the original blunderbuss. Dun dun. Before I disappear back into the abyss, I just wanted to ask if any of you watching played Sea of Thieves during the 2 weeks HG was down a couple of months ago. I wasn't playing at that time, but I would imagine there were a lot more sweats flooding the high seas. Also, by the way, in this video I talked in a lot of general terms. Of course, nothing is black and white. There are people who never play HG who are gods at the game, and vice versa. There are people that are only good at sniping, there are people only good at naval, there are insider goons that are really good at hand-to-hand combat but don't even know how to turn a wheel. You get the idea. Thank you for watching, and if you agree or disagree with me, let me know how trash I am down in the comments. Yeah, bye-bye. GG.